A man's alarm went off at 3:33 a.m. every night. He finally unplugged it. The next night it rang again without power. The first time it happened, Jacob dismissed it as a simple glitch, a technological hiccup. He was a man of logic, a programmer who spent his days untangling knots of code. A digital clock, even an old one, was just a circuit board and a display. He had set the alarm for 6:30 a.m., but for some reason it blared to life at the ungodly hour of 3:33 a.m. The piercing digital screech sliced through his sleep, leaving his heart hammering against his ribs. He fumbled for the snooze button, squinted at the glowing red numbers, and reset it. Strange but not impossible, these things happened. The next night, however, it did it again. Same time, same jarring, electronic wail. By the fourth night, Jacob was no longer thinking it was a glitch. A pattern was emerging, a rigid and unnatural repetition that defied the random chaos of a malfunctioning device. His frustration morphed into a methodical investigation. He tried everything his logical mind could conjure. He reset the clock to factory settings, a digital exorcism of sorts. It still went off at 3:33 a.m. He changed the alarm time to noon, to midnight, 2 times that didn't even exist on the clock's interface. The next morning, 3:33 a.m., arrived with its punctual shrieking announcement. He even opened the back, checking for any loose wires or dust that might be shorting the circuit. Everything was pristine, a perfectly ordinary piece of outdated technology. The clock was a gift from his grandmother, a relic from the 90s he'd kept for sentimental reasons. Now, its presence on his nightstand felt less like a memento and more like a menace. The number itself, 3:33, began to take on a sinister quality. A digital sigil burned into the fabric of his nights. He saw it everywhere, on license plates, on receipts, the time on his phone when he glanced at it randomly. The fifth night brought a new level of dread. As the inevitable alarm approached, Jacob found himself lying awake, staring at the ceiling, his body tense. He was waiting for it. The anticipation was worse than the sound itself. It felt like an appointment he was being forced to keep with something unseen. When the numbers on the display finally flipped to 3:33, he didn't hear the familiar electronic screech. Instead, a new sound filled the room. It was a low, static hum, a sound like a radio tuned between stations, but woven within the static was something else. A whisper. It was faint, distorted, a digital ghost in the machine. He couldn't make out the words, but the cadence was rhythmic, repetitive, like a chant. A cold sweat broke out across his forehead. This was no longer about faulty wiring. This was something else entirely. Something was using the clock, speaking through it. Driven by a surge of fear and anger, Jacob lunged from his bed, ripped the clock's cord from the wall outlet, and threw it into a drawer. The silence that followed was heavy, absolute. For the first time in a week, he slept through the night, a deep, dreamless slumber. He woke up feeling refreshed. The morning sun, a welcome balm. The incident seemed like a bad dream, a product of stress and an overactive imagination. He went about his day, the memory of the whispering static fading with each passing hour. He decided to throw the clock away that evening, to be done with it for good. The sense of control was liberating. He was the one in charge, not some piece of plastic and wires. That night, he went to bed feeling a profound sense of peace. The house was quiet. The drawer remained shut. There was no power, no circuit, no way for the machine to act on its own. He drifted off to sleep, confident the ordeal was over. But then, a sound pulled him from the depths of his slumber. It was a sound he now knew intimately, a piercing, digital screech. His eyes snapped open. The room was pitch black, but the sound was undeniably real, coming from the direction of his dresser. And through the shrieking alarm, another sound emerged, clearer this time than it had ever been. A digital whisper, no longer distorted by static, spoke from the powerless clock inside the drawer. It repeated a single, chilling phrase over and over, in perfect, unnatural rhythm. A man's alarm went off at 3:33 a.m. every night. He finally unplugged it. The next night it rang again without power.